Hey, today on 20-Sided Night, we're going over the Wights. Before we go into them too much, I just want to remind you all to comment and subscribe for your chance to be put into our monthly giveaways for October. And to know who our September winners was, that will be talked about later on in the video. Just about a little bit about the Wights. They start on page 300 of the Monster Manual in D&D. And Evan, do you just want to talk a little bit about them?
Yeah, so basically the Wight, it's an undead creature that was born of the death of a very violent, evil person. So, you know how there's a whole deathbed conversion where a bad guy's like, oh, I lived my life wrong the whole time. Sorry, Jesus. And they sort of...
Assuming it's harder than that, but yeah, go on.
But, yeah, so basically, as they're dying, they're like, Satan, come on, you owe me.
Oh, so they lived and died by being edgelords.
Yeah, or just any evil god. I know in the book it talks about Orcus because he's about necromancy. They're undead. It's a whole motif they're going for. Any dark god will sort of say, you know what? I liked season 1. Let's see how season 2 goes.
Let's see if this necromancy can make you even more evil, or Bandit Joe.
Like most undead, they hide from the sun, sunlight sensitivity. Also, they're driven by a hunger for life force that they no longer have, and it's done by an ability called Life Drain. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Not any dumber or smarter than they were in life, but typically they are sort of on the more stabby, less planny end of how they do things.
We'll scream that at you in a bit here. Speaking about how smart they are, what are the stats?
The stats for the Wight are, they're medium undead, and they're neutral evil. Their armor class is 14. They have 45 hit points. They have a speed of 30. They have a strength of 15, a dex of 14, a constitution of 16, intelligence of 10, a wisdom of 13, and a charisma of 15. The skills that they have are, they have a +3 to perception and a +4 to stealth. They have a lot of resistances. They're resistant to necrotic, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical weapons that aren't silvered. They're completely immune to poison, and they're immune to the conditions of exhausted or poisoned. For their senses, they have dark vision for 60 feet, passive perception of 13, and the languages they knew in life are what they understand. They're a challenge rating of 3, which does put them on the first tier of play. Another thing that they have is sunlight sensitivity, so basically while in sunlight, or if they're going for a target that's in sunlight, they have disadvantage on attack rolls as well as wisdom or perception checks. Basically, they're really useless in the sunlight. They do have a multi-attack, which allows them to make 2 longsword attacks or 2 longbow attacks, or can use the Life Drain ability in place of one of its longsword attacks. The Life Drain ability is it's a melee weapon attack. It's a +4 to hit, 5-foot range on one creature. If it hits, it does 1d6 + 2 necrotic damage, and the target must make DC 13 Constitution saving throw, or its hit point maximum is reduced by the amount of damage that they took, and it lasts until they finish a long rest. If the target dies from this 24 hours, later they do come back as a zombie under the Wight's control, and the Wight can have no more than 12 zombies, so it's a decent-sized horde.
Yeah, definitely first tier, but probably they're not going to be the first adventure a group runs into. Sort of like if your first adventure was stopping a group of cultists or stopping a bandit raid that happened in town, then you would see these, you would see Wights maybe a month in game time later on, just, oh yeah, remember me? Sort of thing, show them back up again, or say after you've killed Bandit Joe and his horde. You leave whatever settlement that you left. A few months later, there's more troubles, undead. And you go out to the woods and investigate, and it turns out that Bandit Joe, he has been arisen by his anger and hatred into a Wight. He's recollected his forces, and now he doesn't really care too much about the plunder and gold as much as he does
the stabbing.
Stabbing and getting revenge on whoever killed him in the first place.
Yeah.
You guys.
Yeah, they're kind of a cool way if you want to have a reoccurring villain, but there's a whole thing of, oh no, I can't have them be back because they're dead. Wight's a good way to do that.
Yeah, I think that stood out to me about the Wights really was that they are one of the few intelligent undead. You have zombies and the skeletons who are basically undeads, but they're real boneheads. And I feel like one of the major Wight powers that they get in this one was that they are smart. They can plan. I know that it says in the book that while they can, but a lot of times they choose not to. They still can. Will-o'-the-wisps and for some parts of it, Banshees, they really seem like they're on one track of things, like they're all about revenge and things like that.
Yeah.
Where the Wights, they are about accumulating power, just they get that power from collecting souls. It does mention in there for that where, for the Wights, a lot of times their crypts, their burrows that they sort of hang out in their tombs, it is surrounded by a darker sort of black
energy.
just a really vile energy that the druids would pick up on. The trees are blackened and withered and things like that. And so you would possibly see things like, not inside just for sure because the Wight is smart enough to drive things off, but maybe some carrion crawlers that sort of picked up on the scent like about a mile or two away from the tomb.
You might see more scavengers, like maybe like more vultures, or depending on where you are, like maybe more things like maybe hyenas or just other.
Or since they are touched by
rats,
or since they are touched by orcus, and you got hyenas, you could also get some gnolls in the area. That could also be the sign of a Wight, where the place is more desolate. It's typically more woodsy than here. There's hyenas about. That's weird, but whatever.
Yeah, well, depending on like if you're in more like not Europe-y setting, you'd be hyenas.
I don't play in a Europe-y setting. I think that's stupid to just keep playing it like the same.
No, you always got to play in somewhere 2 hours south of London.
Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever. God damn it.
But yeah, so that could be a fun way to introduce these guys into the game. You got a bunch of hyenas roaming around, and then there's random gnolls, and then some carrion crawlers. People are talking about, oh hey, don't go into the woods. They were cursed a while back. We think it's some malicious force or some omen for that we've made a demon mad or us or God's mad at us, and then
or something where like. Maybe the party took Stab and Joe back to town instead of just, the ward was dead or alive and they chose alive for once. And, maybe at his hanging, he was like, I'll come back and I'll be even stabbier and meanier than ever. And they were like, whatever, Stab and Joe, you're getting hung.
And then just like the ditch that they left him in, Stab and Joe, and he's a Wight there now. He's ruining the land. But yeah, so that could be, how to sort of put them, I want to say that could be, some clues to know there's a Wight in the area.
Yeah.
The Wights, they can at least have different goals, like the search of power that may bring them into separate places, whether it's working for like a wraith or a lich or something like that, or their search for power is collecting more souls. They at least have some sort of goal in mind that can even change their stats up to have them like sort of gain more power over time, depending on how long it takes your group to deal with the Wight situation.
Yeah, like maybe they're something where the party is just like, yeah, well, listen, we already dealt with that force, or those bandits were nuts to that, and maybe it's something where, because like you said, they're kind of, they're not the dummies of the undead, but they're not like your vampires or your liches where they're going to have long, drawn out, convoluted plans. Like, they'll plan things out, but they won't like have like
monologue on it.
Yeah, they won't be like, oh, all according to plan. But yeah, like like you're saying, they may work for someone because it's like, listen, I'm not going to be my own boss, but there's with these guys, I'm going to have a lot of opportunity to go out there and kill people. I
want to say it'd be interesting for a Wight's plan because it doesn't take too much thinkery to do this, but a solid plan for a Wight would be to just get his sort of whatever powers brought him to becoming a Wight, right? Mm-hmm. And just sort of tempting other bandits and cultists and whatnot to give them like power while they continue to do bandit raids on his behalf.
Yeah.
So like he's sort of like he or she could have accumulated all this wealth just because that doesn't take too much wealth to just like be highwaymen outside the outskirts of town, and occasionally they would say go into town just like under like a disguise, like they wear a veil
or a hood.
Yeah, or a hood, and just because Wights just gotta have fun, sort of things like that. So. I wouldn't play them just as I would a bunch of zombies in a tomb. I would give them maybe a few goals and motivations. Maybe even one motivation would be to eventually, if it does take years to take care of this Wight problem in your game, the Wight just wants to end the curse eventually.
Yeah, maybe that could.
Or not in the curse, not in either. Yeah, in the curse, or just sort of have some sort of way to make it look more presentable.
Yeah.
So like it could take all the wealth that it may have gained and then be able to put itself back into society, so it's not just like dark. Yeah, exactly. Maybe get some magics in it to give this guy self. I'm going off on a tangent here, though.
Yeah. Yeah, or another cool thing you could do with the Wights, you could use as a way to sort of bring back a player character. Like, let's say you have a player character who they're they're being a real, edgelord. Like, they're like, ooh, I'm going to be as mean and bad as I can. Like, they're always being that guy. You know who you are. Actually, they usually don't. You know who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're kind of doing stuff like that, and then when they die, it's like they start kind of throwing a history, like, oh man, I made sure he had his eyeliner done super well from Hot Topic, or I made him the meanest man ever. I'd put all the stuff to make him mean. They're whinging about it. You say, all right, fine, they were so bad they're brought back, but now have fun with sunlight sensitivity.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, because I know in 3.5 they have like a whole bunch of different races that you can be. You can just take some of like you can take like some of the actions in here, port those on over to a player character for that. Or if, like, say, they did want to retire that character just because they didn't like them, but you're in game, your cleric didn't want to have to waste the 1,000 or 500 gold diamond to resurrect them because they kept stealing from the party, or anything like that, or they just couldn't save them at the time. This player character could come back as a reoccurring villain for later on.
Yeah, like, why didn't you resurrect me?
Yeah, you can either go the ghost, you can either have them come back as a ghost, revenant, or if they're an evil player, you got the Wights there for them. So yeah, that sort of takes care of that. One thing I did want to go into that I promised that we would talk about later is the contest winners for September 2018. Good job, Riker Davis and John Cheerland. We'll also do what we normally do. We'll put a comment on your guys' comments later on there for that, but this is how we're announcing the winners for next time. We're just going to put it in a random video just to give you bastards more incentive to keep watching us.
Do it.
Please. We'll now sort of take a couple minutes to sort of talk about what a Wight's tomb would look like. I know you and I had some different ideas about this. I sort of thought that a Wight's tomb, to me, it sort of looks like it would be a crypt, maybe on the outskirts of town, or some sort of bandit lair that was abandoned after the bandit leader died. He goes back there because it's what they remembered when they were alive, and so they try to reclaim the place, try to re-pull some people together, say, hey, I died, but I got these sweet-ass Orcus powers now. Worship of Orcus, come to me, and I'll give you guys the spells. False Life as a first-level spell, Ray of Enfeeblement, and then later on Animate Dead at third level. Therefore, that would be a nice incentive to really bolster their ranks, to do things like, say, there is a weird corruption going about town, and, certain churches have been toppled. It's because it's Wight. It has been doing, service to Orcus, and so it does sort of, and so it does capture an amount of that. That can be a way to make your Wight a bigger threat than just a random undead that's sprung up somewhere in town. That could be a way to make this guy more intelligent than just a shambling undead. You had some other thoughts about that, right?
Yeah, so I was thinking, because the Wight, it's kind of versatile, it can kind of do one or two things. It can kind of be more like a homebody, kind of like a creature where likes to den up, where maybe, like you were saying, it does go back to its old hideout, because it's like, well, I already had the place paid off. Or maybe they take up residence in an abandoned mine, or they kind of do that and they sort of lure travelers, or like I said, if they're a bandit guy, they fall back and like, well, I'm a highwayman now, but now I can steal your soul as well as your, you don't have to say your money or your life, you just sort of say your money and your life, like a roaming psychopath, where they're like a serial, like maybe just instead of like a bandit, like it was a serial killer who at his execution was like, I'll be backer and eviler than ever, and they're like, no, you're not, and he's like, wanna bet? And then so yeah, maybe they're they're wandering around the countryside, like during the day they sort of find a place to sort of stay out of the sun, or maybe if they're in a bigger city they could do something where they could hide in the sewers and go and kill people, and they have like a like they can have undead, so now they can have up to a dozen zombies.
That can sort of be like how the vampire and the Wight sort of got into contact with each other. They're both hiding from the sunlight. And
we just become best friends. Yup. But yeah, so they could there's kind of the two ways, like the roaming psychopath, where maybe they do have like a horde of undead just sort of following them around, or it's something where they'll kill a bunch of people and they'll leave the zombies and let them sort of go feral back in the little village that they messed up, and do that.
Yeah, a few creatures that I would see hanging out or around a Wight's lair. Scavengers, like how I mentioned before, vultures, carrion creepers, hyenas, eventually leading into gnolls. But then also a few that will be inside or closer to it. Those would be, I know you disagree with me, but ropers and cloakers, some mimics, because it would be smart enough to know what people who would plunder tombs would want. Hide a mimic in there. bites your adventure's arm off before it gets to the guy. Ropers and cloakers, just because they do sort of hang out in gross places. Carrion creepers, I want to say they would be attracted to the scent, even enough to sort of drive into there, and that can be a problem for the Wight and their bandits to sort of deal with as well.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, all these zombies, and plus our boss is a rotting corpse. Now we got carrion crawlers.
That'll probably give the bandits a better reason to go out and look for, to hire some adventurers to go take care of this whole situation that they've, fallen themselves into.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we just want to raid some towns. Please don't kill us. But, now we got undead to deal with. Those weird, terrifying hyena demons. He's gotten a lot of gross cultists lying around, too. Just take care of this problem with us, and we'll give you some of our spoils of war.
Yeah, we miss the good old days when we didn't have to deal with, be roommates with gnolls and, deal with carrion creepers, lurking around everywhere, doing all this stuff. We just want to go back to the way it was when we just, murder and steal. The good old days.
So, again, Otyogs would probably be really thematic to put in here since they're attracted to offal. Let's see here. Some cultists, skeletons, zombies for sure. And I even want to say maybe some shadows. We'll probably deal with shadows in another creature feature, therefore that down the line. But they're sort of raised in a similar fashion. But yeah, that about covers. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about them?
No, that covers it for me.
All right. If you do want to add some undead into your game for this spooky October, or really any month out of the year, look into these guys. Thanks for watching 20 Sided Night. Bye for now.